a new episode of Tower of God is finally here. Can we just say that this is one of the best days of the week? Like, besides Saturday, that has Kaguya-sama that comes out, Wednesday, honestly, by far, is one of the best days of spring of anime 2020, and I'm so glad Tower of God is here. I'm so glad we got this series for this season to watch after so many other series have been delayed, canceled, etc., so yeah, but anyways, let's get right into it. This episode, I think many are gonna be absolutely shocked, because one of the big objectives that Bam himself has set out to accomplish was technically accomplished within this episode, and honestly, we're really not that far into the series. When you really take a moment to think about it, we are not that deep into the series yet, and Bam has already technically found Rachel, which has been his objective since the beginning. So many are probably like, okay, so he found Rachel, what's next? And, what was the whole point of her leaving him if, it was going to be this quick for him to find her? There's a lot of things that many are going to start thinking about, and I kind of want to dive into little details here and there. So one of the big details, obviously, is that Bam, like I said, he's been trying to find Rachel. That was the whole objective. Like, his entire goal in life was to find her, climb the tower to find her. He had no other objective, which, when you look at this situation, this is actually a good thing for a variety of reasons. One big reason is this will give Bam some character development. This will allow him to find out who he wants to be, instead of just being someone that is simping after, Rachel. Like, just someone that actually has his own objective, someone that is his own man, own person. Because when you really look at Bam as a character, as I've already discussed, is that he's very bland. He doesn't really have anything going for him. He's someone that literally all he wants is to find Rachel, and there's nothing else. And so I know many might find Bam a little bit annoying or weakling or whatever, but obviously because of this personality, this connection he has with Rachel, wanting to hold on to her so tightly, could potentially lead into some great character development. And, that is the one thing that's been building up. So obviously him meeting Rachel is actually a good thing, because this means now that Bam could finally put aside that objective and do something else now. Either climb the tower with her, or just find out something else he wants to accomplish. Find a reason to climb this tower. Besides just being with Rachel, maybe he might have another goal, a wish or something that he might want. Let's talk about some of the key details, which is Bam's overall stunt with Shinsu, which was the, water, divine water, the magic that we see displayed throughout this series. We see Bam literally become like Shinsu itself. He literally just has this golden light come out of him. He breaks the crown for the crown game, and the woman that was attacking him, literally her mask shatters, she gets injured, and she falls backwards, which pretty much shows that Bam's strength is absolutely insane. Now, this is something that's kind of already been built up for a while now, because when you think about what happened within the first episode, but also what happened a few episodes ago with the whole test of, with the wall popping up and they had to pass through, the water, the Shinsu that the ranker put up, obviously, Bam already had some hints at some strong power, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's been gifted a lot of gifts, he's been very lucky, especially with his team, to the weapon he's been given, but also now we know that he potentially has a lot of power when it comes to Shinsu, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And the thing is, this has been hinted at since literally the first episode, and what I'm trying to say is we gotta think about the test that was given to him. When he had to face that serpent, and he had to dive into its mouth, you gotta imagine, this Shinsu in that zone probably was incredible. I mean, it was technically water all around in that area, and it was stated that that test could have been on the level of floor 20, which pretty much says that what Bam was going up against was way out of the league of everyone that's currently taking these tests. So we know for a fact what Bam did there was definitely incredible, but on top of that, he was able to handle the pressure of the Shinsu, because this was stated a few episodes ago that as you climb the tower, the concentration of Shinsu gets so much greater to where if your body is not able to handle it, you're just going to be crouching and leaning down in pain. So we know for a fact that Bam has already had this level of strength to be able to handle that, and seeing this episode, it kind of makes sense why he's able to demonstrate such a high level of power, because it's kind of been in our face since the very beginning. But let's talk about what was said that makes this situation even more interesting, and that is the fact that Bam does not have a contract, apparently. So it was mentioned very briefly towards the end of the episode that the ranker that's given the test out, he's like, have you ever really seen anyone that is able to use Shinsu without having a contract? And the person's like, look, yeah, there is one person called Urek, which was able to do this, and we see a brief little image of him, which, oh my god, hype. Just that's all I'm gonna say, just hype. But the point, though, is that seeing that mention, it kind of sets up saying that Bam is something very different. Someone that is an irregular, someone that isn't normal, someone that has capabilities that normally people do not possess. Because apparently, you have to have a contract to be able to use Shinsu. And if you don't have a contract, that means obviously you shouldn't be able to use it, but everything we know, Bam does not, because obviously he was outside the tower, he recently came inside the tower, he's someone that is literally like a feral child. He has no idea what is really going on in the world, how the tower works, how Shinsu works, or anything. He's just someone that is completely out of the loop. So it makes a lot of sense why many would be like, so where did he do this? And he didn't, obviously, from what we know of, unless he lost his memories or something and he did it without knowing it. But, that, you know, I highly doubt that actually happened. You gotta really think about it. So, anyways, the point is that this episode really takes the world building to an all-new level, and it tries to dive a little bit deeper into Bam's character, giving him something else besides just chasing after Rachel, which this leads into another big segment to talk about, which is Rachel's team. So, Rachel's team is very, very interesting because they actually protected Bam towards the end. And obviously, from everything we've seen thus far from the previous episode, it didn't seem like, you know, that team was going to be protecting Bam. We were under the impression going into this episode that Rachel's team was going to mercilessly hunt down everyone in the crown game and kill them, even Bam, Rock, and Kun. So, you were probably thinking, like, why the sudden change? And that's the big question, is we don't really know what the reason is. Did Rachel actually say to them that she wanted Bam to be protected, or did that team not really care about winning in the first place, and they just wanted to go against the rules, go against the grain, and just prove that they don't care about who wins, they just wanted to fight? Is that the reason why they did that in the first place? There's a lot of questions, but at the same time, it's very apparent it will be answered in due time. We just gotta wait for it. But it's pretty cool, though, just to see that there is another group, another strong group that potentially could be the allies to Bam, Rock, and also Kun. Which, speaking of Kun, this is a good segue for it. Kun kind of talks about his bag and kind of how it works. Now, we already knew that it could duplicate items, thanks to the previous episode, with what he did with the crown, how he literally duplicated the crown, and it was pretty much a perfect replica, which is kind of crazy in of itself. So that power pretty much broken when you really think about it. But he goes much further than that. Apparently, Kun is also able to make not just one, but multiple, like tens to dozens of copies of one object, which explains why he's able to do the chocolate so much with Rock. But on top of that, he's also apparently able to store people inside of it for long periods of time, which is kind of crazy to think about, because this means that Kun can literally go around the rules of certain parts of the tower to get people up the floors. And that's kind of what he did. He kind of got a group of 3 people through a certain test that normally would not have been possible. So it's pretty cool to see how Kun's bag actually works and how he could store people inside of it and keep them safe, because we know that his bag is incredibly durable. He's actually used it as a shield. He's stored things in it, obviously, like food that he's able to like duplicate. So his bag is very, 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 very important to his entire fighting style, because without it, he probably wouldn't be as strong when you think about it. So it's cool to see that he is able to duplicate items, but on top of that, if he needs to get people through a dangerous area, he could store them in the bag. Like if they're injured or something, he could probably put them in the bag for they could stay safe, which makes you wonder what really happens inside the bag. Is it like a pocket dimension? Do they have food to eat, or are they put in stasis to where they can't move or whatever? Like is time completely stopped inside of the bag? There really isn't any explanation at the moment, but it still makes you wonder, like, what is going on? Does he put them in stasis, or are they still moving around inside the bag? Is it like a whole other world or something inside? There's so many questions, but okay. For now, though, let's talk about the art and animation, because that's something I do want to talk about. The art and animation of this episode is absolutely spectacular. I think that it really needs to be mentioned. I need to take a moment to really talk about it because the fighting and the fluid motion of the characters was something that really stood out to me while watching this episode, especially when the whole Rachel team popped up trying to protect Bam. Just the art and animation truly stuns me. And I know many, when they're watching Tower God, I've seen a few people say that Tower God, it feels very off to them because the line work just looks very weird, and that is very true. And as I've said already many times with my first impressions to couple episode reviews, when it comes to Tower God, the reason why the line work and art style looks like it does is because they're trying to keep that roughish style that the webtoon has, and I really do respect that. I respect them trying to be true to the original and not trying to just make it a typical anime style. So personally, if you are still having issues with line work, etc. at this point, maybe this series isn't for you if it really is bugging you that much. But overall, I think the line work really works, especially with certain action scenes, and this is just a wonderful episode to really show that because I just love seeing how he was actually fighting, the way the movement of his spear was, and how everybody's coming in at him. There's just a really nice flow to it. But on top of that, I need to also take a moment to talk about designs of characters, and this is something that I really dived into too much when I was reviewing the webtoon when I was first getting into it, but the actual character designs of all these individual characters are super unique. I mean, let's just take a moment to look at all the characters that were going up against our team in this episode. Like, we had someone that looked like a squirrel, we have, like, this weird, like, rubbery-looking dude, we have this weird guy with, like, weird tentacles coming out of his mouth and all that. There's some really weird and unique designs to these characters, and I think many are not going to really take a moment to think about how good these designs are, and just how they're really pizzazzy. It's not something you normally would see, and I just think that the writer of Tower God really does go in. He wants to make something very unique. And I mean, also there has been memes and stuff going around that apparently Zoro is in this series, which I've neglected to mention the past few episode reviews, but apparently there was a character like 2 episodes ago that legitimately looks like Zoro from One Piece, which is pretty funny, because I went back to look at it, and legit, it does look like Zoro, and I was like, holy crap, wow, I can't believe I didn't see that. But yeah, so overall, Tower of God, fantastic. I'm so glad this series is coming out. We have great episodes. They're faithfully following the webtoon. And, I mean, if this keeps up and all that, we're definitely going to get a Season 2 and a continuation. I really hope to see it because this, like I've said many times before, it's a whole new era for anime because webtoons are now getting animated. God of High School is over the horizon. Like we can see it very soon. And speaking of which, God of High School, holy crap, if you haven't seen that trailer, seriously go watch that. That was a really good trailer. But, okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I love you guys. Thank you so much for, watching this video, watching my content. If you like this episode, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you hate this episode? How do you feel about the fight? How do you feel about the twist with Bam? Be honest in the comments below. I'm very curious to see how you all feel about it. And Anime Onlys, how are you feeling about the adaptation? Like, how are you feeling about the anime? Since you're a first-time watcher, not knowing what to expect, how do you feel about the series? Are you actually enjoying it, or do you think it's overhyped? Please be honest. I'm very curious to see how you all feel about it. But I love you guys. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. Because for some reason, even if you subscribe, you don't always get notified. So if you want to get notified, hit that bell icon. And with that, Chibi out.